Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful for You channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The opulent, sun-drenched living room of the Forrester Creations mansion, usually a stage for whispered conspiracies and champagne-fueled celebrations, had become a mausoleum for Remy's shattered heart. The air, thick with the scent of expensive white lilies and regret, was still, as if the very house was holding its breath in the wake of the emotional cataclysm that had just transpired. Remy stood alone in the center of the room, his tall, athletic frame seeming to sag under an invisible, crushing weight. The echo of the front door slamming shut, the percussive final note to Deke's departure, still vibrated in his bones. He could still see the look in Deke's eyes, not of anger, but of a profound, weary disappointment, a look that was far more devastating than any shouted accusation. It was a look that said the foundation of their world, painstakingly built over 2 years of love, trust, and shared dreams, had been revealed to be rotten, compromised by a single, unforgivable secret. And that secret had a name, Electra. Remy's hands, usually so steady whether sketching a new design or caressing Deke's face, trembled at his sides. He balled them into fists, the knuckles bleaching white, his short, neatly trimmed nails digging half-moons into his palms. The physical pain was a welcome distraction from the raw, gaping wound in his chest, a wound that felt less like a metaphor and more like a physical cavity, sucking all the light and warmth from his body. He replayed Deke's words, each one a shard of glass meticulously embedded in his soul. "I can't do this, Remy. I can't build a life with someone who keeps a vault of secrets. This thing with Electra, it's not that it happened. It's that you hid it. You let me love you, you stood there while we talked about our future, about a family, and all the while, this was sitting between us. How can I ever trust what's real?" The question hung in the air, more damning than any verdict. Remy had tried to explain, his voice cracking with a desperation that was foreign to him. He'd spoken of a moment of profound weakness, a night of too much whiskey and shared loneliness in the wake of his father's death, a catastrophic error in judgment that he had buried out of sheer terror of losing the one truly good thing in his life. But his explanation sounded feeble, even to his own ears. The truth was simple and ugly, he had been weak, and then he had been a coward. And now, he was alone. The silence of the mansion was abruptly shattered by the brisk, confident click-clack of high heels on marble. The sound was like a needle scratching across the record of his grief, an intrusion so violently out of place that it snapped his head up. He didn't need to turn around to know who it was. That particular cadence, a staccato rhythm of entitlement and feline grace, belonged to only one person. Electra. She swept into the room, a vision of calculated perfection in a crimson-sheathed dress that clung to her every curve, a color so bold it seemed to mock the muted, tasteful tones of the decor. Her blonde hair was a flawless cascade, her makeup impeccable. She carried 2 glasses of champagne, a triumphant, almost predatory smile playing on her lips. "Well? Don't just stand there looking like a lost puppy," she chirped, her voice a silvery bell that set his teeth on edge. "I saw Deke's car peel out of here like a bat out of hell. I take it the deed is done? The boring, predictable boyfriend has been shown the door? Now we can finally be together, without all the tedious sneaking around." She extended a glass toward him, the bubbles in the champagne fizzing with a cruel merriment. Remy turned slowly. The movement was deliberate, heavy, as if he were moving through tar. His eyes, usually a warm, expressive brown, were now flat, dark pools of pure, unadulterated fury. He looked at the proffered glass, then back at her face, his expression so devoid of warmth that her smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "What?" she asked, a note of impatience creeping into her voice. "Don't tell me you're having second thoughts. Remy, we've been over this. Deke was a phase, a safe, comfortable placeholder. What you and I have, it's passion. It's real. It's what people write songs about." "You," Remy said, his voice a low, gravelly whisper, so different from his normal tone it was almost unrecognizable. The single word hung in the air, charged and dangerous. Electra blinked, her smile now completely gone, replaced by a mask of confused irritation. Me, what? Remy, what is wrong with you? You got what you wanted. You're free. I said, he repeated, his voice rising, gaining volume and texture, coiling like a snake ready to strike, you. He took a step toward her, and for the first time, Electra took an involuntary step back, the instinctual reaction of prey sensing a predator. The movement was slight, but it was there, and it fueled the fire inside him. What I wanted, he echoed, a harsh, mirthless laugh tearing from his throat. You think this is what I wanted? You think I wanted to stand there and watch the man I love look at me like I was a stranger? Like I was something he'd scraped off his shoe? You think I wanted to see 2 years of my life, of our future, disintegrate into dust right in front of my eyes because of one stupid, meaningless mistake that you just couldn't let lie? It wasn't meaningless. Electra shot back, her own anger beginning to flare, a defensive weapon against the onslaught of his. It meant something. It meant everything. You're just too scared to admit it. It meant nothing. Remy roared, the sound exploding through the quiet room, causing the crystals on the chandelier to shiver. He lunged forward, not at her, but past her, snatching the champagne flute from her hand. He didn't throw it at her, that would be too direct, too clean. Instead, he hurled it with all his might against the pristine, white marble fireplace. The glass exploded in a spectacular shower of crystal shards and golden liquid, the sound of violent, satisfying punctuation to his rage. Electra flinched, a genuine flicker of fear in her eyes now. She had seen Remy annoyed, frustrated, even angry, but she had never seen this raw, untamed, destructive fury. This was a side of the charming, talented designer she had never known existed. It was a mistake, Electra, he snarled, advancing on her again, his finger jabbing in her direction. A one-night stand born out of grief and too much alcohol. It was a moment of weakness that I regretted the second the sun came up. I told you that. I begged you to forget it ever happened. But you couldn't do that, could you? You couldn't just let it be a secret we both took to our graves. You had to pick at it. You had to nurture it. You fed it and watered it like some poisonous little plant until it grew so big and so toxic that you could use it as a weapon. I didn't force you into my bed, Remy, she spat, crossing her arms over her chest, a defiant gesture that failed to mask the slight tremor in her hands. You came willingly. You were a mess after your father died, and I was there for you. Deke was off on one of his righteous humanitarian trips, and I was there. I gave you comfort. I gave you passion. And you loved every minute of it until your precious conscience kicked in. Comfort? Remy's laugh was a bitter, broken thing. Is that what you call it? It was a transaction for you, and you know it. You saw a crack in my relationship, and you poured yourself into it, not to heal it, but to widen it. You saw me vulnerable and grieving, and you saw an opportunity. You've always been obsessed with Deke, with what he and I had. You could never stand that he was happy with me, that he had found something real and stable and good, something your money and your manipulations could never buy you. That's not true. Electra shouted, her composure finally beginning to crack. The perfectly applied makeup could not conceal the flush of real anger rising on her neck. I care about you. I have always cared about you. Long before Deke ever came along with his boring sweaters and his moral high ground. We have a connection, Remy, a chemistry that you and he could never even dream of. What we have is fire. What you had with him was a lukewarm bath. Don't you dare, Remy whispered, his voice dropping again into that deadly, quiet register. Don't you dare diminish what I had with him. You have no idea. You have no concept of what real love is. You think love is drama and possession and screaming matches and making scenes. What I had with Deke was peace. It was coming home after a long day and knowing I was safe. It was talking about our dreams and knowing he was really listening. It was building a life, brick by boring, beautiful brick. It was trust. It was the one thing in my chaotic, ridiculous life that was solid and true. And you took a sledgehammer to it because you were bored. Because you couldn't stand to see someone else have something you couldn't manipulate or control. He was pacing now, a caged animal, his gestures wide and frantic. Do you know what he said to me? Right before he left? He said, the affair I could maybe have forgiven in time. People make mistakes. But the lying, Remy? The months and months of looking me in the eye and telling me I was your everything, while you carried the secret? That's the betrayal I can't come back from. He didn't even yell, Electra. He was just sad. And tired. And the worst part is, he's right. I killed the one thing he valued most in our relationship. I killed his trust. And I did it because I was a coward. But you, he stopped his pacing and wheeled on her, his eyes blazing. You didn't just provide the weapon. You aimed it. You pulled the trigger. I didn't tell him. Electra screamed, her own frustration boiling over. I kept our secret. This is on you. You're the one who couldn't live with the guilt. You're the one who had to unburden your precious soul and destroy everything in the process. Don't you put this on me. I didn't tell him. Remy roared back, the truth finally exploding into the space between them. He found out. He found the goddamn necklace. The ridiculously expensive diamond necklace you accidentally left in my jacket pocket the night of the Forrester Foundation gala. The one I've been tearing my apartment apart looking for weeks. He found it when he was taking my suit to the dry cleaners. He held it in his hand and he asked me, calmly, whose it was. And I saw it in his eyes, Electra. I saw the moment he knew. I saw the moment the pieces all clicked into place. And I stood there, and I lied. I tried to say it must have been my mother's, or a prop from a shoot. And he just looked at me, and he knew I was lying. He knew. And that was it. The trust was gone, just like that. Because of your little calling card that you just had to leave behind. The revelation hit Electra like a physical blow. Her face went slack with shock, the carefully constructed mask of defiance crumbling away to reveal something uglier beneath, calculation, and the dawning realization that her plan had spiraled far beyond her control. The necklace. She had forgotten about the necklace. In her mind, it was a romantic token, a tangible reminder of their night together, a seed planted that would eventually grow and push Deke out. She hadn't considered it would be discovered like a piece of damning evidence. For a moment, she was speechless. Remy saw the flicker of understanding in her eyes, and it unleashed the final, most venomous wave of his rage. He closed the distance between them in 2 long strides, not touching her, but looming over her, his presence an oppressive force. You did this, he seethed, his voice trembling with the intensity of his emotion. You with your scheming and your plotting and your pathetic, desperate need to own me, to own a piece of what Deke had. You couldn't just let me be happy. You had to poison it. You had to mark your territory like a dog. You inserted yourself into my life and you injected your venom into the one pure thing I had, and you sat back and watched as the whole thing sickened and died. Tears were now streaming down Electra's face, but they were not tears of remorse, they were tears of furious, thwarted entitlement. I love you, she cried, her voice cracking. Everything I did because I love you. Can't you see that? I was trying to save you from a life of mediocrity. Deke would have smothered you. He would have turned you into a bland, suburban nobody. With me, you can be great. We can be the power couple of Los Angeles. We can have everything. I don't want everything. Remy bellowed, his face inches from hers. I wanted him. I wanted our little house in the canyon and our stupid Sunday morning pancake tradition and the way he'd hum off-key in the shower. I wanted the life we built. The life you systematically dismantled piece by piece with your lies and your manipulations. You didn't love me, Electra. You don't know what love is. This is obsession. This is a sickness. You saw something beautiful and your first instinct was to break it, just to see if you could. He took a deep, shuddering breath, the anger momentarily spent, leaving behind a vast, desolate emptiness. The fire in his eyes guttered out, replaced by a cold, dead certainty. You want to know what you've done? He said, his voice now quiet, hollow, and infinitely more terrifying than his shouts. You want to know the real cost of your love? He paused, letting the silence stretch, forcing her to stand in the wreckage she had created. You ruined my life. The words were not shouted. They were delivered with a simple, devastating finality. You took the one person who made me feel whole and you turned him against me. You took my future, the future I fought for, the future I dreamed of, and you set it on fire. You took my home and you made it a house of lies. You took my art and you've made it so that every time I pick up a pencil, I'll see his face, and I'll remember what I lost because of you. You have hollowed me out. There is nothing left inside me but anger and regret, and you are the source of all of it. Electra stared at him, her mascara now leaving black trails down her cheeks. She looked like a tragic painting, but Remy felt no pity. He felt nothing but a cold, clear hatred. So, here's your victory, Electra, he continued, a cruel smile twisting his lips. You have me. Or what's left of me. A shell. A man who will never trust anyone again. A man who will never love again. Is this what you wanted? Is this the great prize you schemed and lied for? This broken thing standing in front of you? Congratulations. You won. Now get out. He turned his back on her, walking toward the large picture window that overlooked the manicured gardens. He stared out at the perfect, sunlit world, a world that now felt gray and alien. He was done. The fight was over. All that remained was the aftermath. Electra stood frozen for a long moment, the silence in the room absolute. The champagne stain on the marble was slowly spreading, a sticky, golden scar on the pristine surface. The shards of glass glittered like malevolent diamonds. She had gotten everything she claimed she wanted, Deke was gone, Remy was free, and yet, she stood amidst the ruins of her own making, realizing too late that the victory was ashes in her mouth. The man she had fought so hard to possess was now a stranger who looked at her with unadulterated loathing. She had not won him, she had destroyed him, and in doing so, had destroyed any chance of ever having what she truly desired. Without another word, she turned and walked out, her footsteps echoing in the hollow silence. The front door clicked shut, much quieter than Deke's had, but its finality was just as profound. Remy didn't move. He continued to stare out the window, watching a lone bird soar high above the city, free and untethered. He was alone. Truly, utterly alone. And the face of his solitude, the architect of his despair, was not Deke's. It was Electra's. And he knew, with a certainty that chilled him to his very core, that the ghost of her betrayal, and the echo of his own words, "You ruined my life," would be his constant companions for a very, very long time. The scene was over, but the tragedy of it would ripple outward, poisoning days and weeks and months to come, a testament to the fact that in the high-stakes world of love and ambition, the most dangerous weapons were not fists or lawsuits, but secrets, lies, and the ruthless, calculated cruelty of a broken heart. DS the audacious, the sensual, and the distinctly contemporary. A combined compilation, potentially named Legacy or Forrester and Logan, would constitute a cultural event. The conflict would not arise from their competition for designs, but from the exhilarating, creative tension of integrating their perspectives.